Mini enthusiasts, how you doing? Welcome back. I hope you're well and I hope you're having a great day. Isn't it looking fantastic? So, as you might have guessed, I'm probably a couple of weeks ahead of the videos at the moment. So in this week's video, we're back on the Racing Green and I'm going to be building up the back end of the car. So refitting the fuel tank, refitting the boot lid and that sort of thing. So things are coming together really quickly now. We're on kind of the final straight. We're heading for the finish line. It's getting really exciting. So make sure you get subscribed. Don't miss an episode because this is going back together very quickly. And it is looking the absolute dog's danglies. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I will catch you again in the next one. Cheers. Right then, next little job was sorting out the fuel tank, cleaning that up and everything like that. So I did run into a slight problem. So I've cleaned it all off with Scotch-Brite pads, and then I've given it all a layer of Cure Rust and then scotched it back. But up round this filler neck here was really quite rusty. That's where like there's a foam pad sits there, and obviously it holds water against the neck of the tank. So I cleaned it off quite aggressively with a wire wheel, and I did actually get a tiny pinhole here. I mean, you could barely see it. Had to sort of use a torch to show it. So what I've actually done, I did think about I could just get the welder out and weld up a tiny little bit, but don't fancy welding a fuel tank even though it's empty. So what I did was I just drilled, it's tiny, I drilled a 2.5mm hole in it. I've just put a 2.5mm rivet in it and then just sealed up the rivet. Obviously when that all goes back together, I'm going to paint it all now with satin black, and then when that goes together, when I put the foam seal back on, I will wax the inside of there, wax or grease, one or the other, just to stop any more corrosion there. I'll probably get slated for that. People will probably say, oh, you should have replaced the fuel tank, but they're not cheap and it's not easy to get a good second-hand one because they all suffer from the same problems. So there we go, don't roast me. Right, bit of an update then. So tend to get carried away when we're reassembling. So that's that tank all painted now. That's ready to go back in. There we go. So yeah, tank's all looking good, ready to go in, and I'm properly fitting the bonnet now. I just rested it there before. Now, just a little tip, I don't know how easy it'll be to see. When you come to refitting the bonnet hinges, there are like 3 positions that the bolt can go through. As you can see, the correct position is the one right at the very back in the centre. There's 2 forward ones. What happened if you fit it in the wrong one? Obviously the bonnet won't line up properly. They are a real pain to get to, those hinges. And the next bit, you might remember this, I mean it's a long time ago now, but I actually drilled through the hinge and the bonnet before I disassembled it all to give me a reference for when I put it back together again. And I did actually use that for lining up the front end as well. So literally all I've done now, a couple of 3mm drill bits through the holes, and now when I tighten those hinges up, the bonnet should be pretty much in the right place. But let me do both sides, I'll be back in a moment and we'll see what it fits like. There we go, so the old bonnet trick has worked a treat. As you can see, our gaps are pretty good. Now the bonnet is going to have to come off again anyway when I fit the engine back in, but like I say, having those holes pre-drilled there makes it so much easier. Bonnet probably wants to come back a little bit that way, but I'm not too worried at the moment. But overall, the gaps in, this is a complete new front end on this, are absolutely spot on. So pleased with that. I think next thing, I need to get the fuel tank in so I can get the boot lid on, which means I've got to clean up all these rear light lenses and everything. I actually strip all these down You can check for corrosion, anything like that on the terminals, and I'll chuck them through the dishwasher. It cleans it up, these lenses and that, really nicely. So let's go and get that done, and then we can get the boot put on, fuel tank in. Yeah, and then I don't know what next, maybe put the rear quarter lights in. I do still need to wet flat this car at some point. The paintwork's good on it, but it will just take it to the next level if I wet flat it. So I don't know, I'm probably not going to refit the whole car. I'll probably leave things like door handles off till the last moment, mirrors and things like that, just because they'll get in the way of flatting. But actually putting the panels on the car makes it a lot easier to flat, because I don't want to be trying to wet flat the bonnet on the bench. It's much easier with it fitted on the car. Same with the doors. Right, busy reassembling. So might have mentioned it before, all of these bits go through the dishwasher. I've just been assembling the rear fog light. These are always, the bolts are always corroded away, so you end up chopping them out, putting new bolts in, giving it all a good clean up. That's a new bracket on there, but if you notice how lovely and shiny that rear lens is, it was all milky and horrible before. So with the rear lenses, if they don't come out nice out the dishwasher, I'll use the DA with some recliner G3 compound, and that brings them up absolutely beautiful. Right, can't remember for the life of me where we've got to. So I've done the bonnet today. Got things like the bonnet prop on, got the rubber trims in. Little tip which I do on my bonnet props, I just put some shrink wrap over the end of them. It just stops, if you accidentally put it somewhere, it stops scratching stuff up, and it just makes it a tighter fit. On windy conditions, you don't get the bonnet flapping around. So bonnet's on. I spent most of the day on the boot though, reassembling the boot, getting the fuel tank back in, cleaning all these lights up. Like I said, I DA the lenses on them to get them nice and shiny and like new again. And yeah, everything's done, well, pretty much done inside the boot now. The tank's back in. I mean, the boot is nice and clean because it was all resprayed, but we are probably going to fit a stitched up interiors boot liner kit because they look very nice. So that's all nice. The boot shuts nicely, although I'll give it a bit of a slam there. You have to, it's a bit tight. Boot shuts okay, but I don't know what it is with boots and boot rubbers. I've got a new boot rubber there from Mini Spares. It just fits like rubbish. I cannot get it to properly hook over this lip. That's the old rubber there, and I changed it because it's got some cuts in it and it's not brilliant, so that probably would leak. So it's on there kind of temporarily at the moment. But I remember having all sorts of trouble with the boot seal on Project Bruce as well. We got a new bracket for the fog light down there. That's all been refurbed and everything like that. Yeah, it's looking like a complete car now, isn't it? Don't know whether I've shown this. Got the door on this side as well now. Doors are really good. This is the MPI door of Project Sprouts. It's got side protection bar in there. It's the one I sort of saved off Project Sprout. But they will shut nicely. Lines are good. This is probably better. The other side, I didn't fold over the A panel quite enough at the top, so it's not as neat as this one, but yeah, it is what it is. I'm very pleased with how it's turned out so far. So yeah, a lot of time spent. I mean, literally bonnet and boot, it's taken me probably 8 hours, but I've obviously cleaned up the fuel tank, flushed it all out, painted it, etc. But I've run out of time for today. But it is nice to see it looking even more complete. What I am finding now is I need to put in an order with Mini Spares. There's lots and lots of bits and bobs I need. Right, I wasn't going to let it beat me. I got that boot seal on in the end. Let me give you some tips. So I thought, and I've got that boot seal on, there's the old one up there, that's the new boot seal on there. It's still tight to close, but my God, it was difficult. I spent probably 45 minutes on it. So let me explain. So the hardest part was actually getting it fully inserted on the lip all the way round, because it's quite a, it's probably 1/4 inch of a lip, and you've got to really make sure that rubber is all the way home on that lip. I didn't actually use any lubricant on the inside there, because the problem is when you lubricate it, it then comes off very easily. Might have made it a little bit easier, maybe give that a try if you do it. But mainly what I've done was I've got these sort of Body Shop mole grips, bit of tape on there as a bit of protectant, and I just went along and I used the mole grips to do the hard work for me, squeezing the rubber all the way in. I then had to go around with a rubber mallet and just tap it in all the way round, and then I was really struggling and really fighting for probably 20 minutes or so. And then what made it much easier was I just went round and I sprayed Demon Shine on all the rubber just to make it a little bit more slippery, and then now it shuts fine and our gaps are fine. Feels like it bulges out a little bit at the bottom here, because I think that's the force of the boot pushing that back panel in. But I think once I leave that shut for a few days, the rubber will probably settle in place, and then I can probably pull that back bit out so we get the gaps perfect again. But yeah, it's on there now. Was not easy to do, bit of a battle, but got a rubber with no cuts or anything now, so it's not going to leak. People often say to me, I make it look easy, but it doesn't always go easy, doesn't always go to plan. Let me turn you around and show you. So, there's nothing worse than after you've resprayed a car, fitting it back together, desperately trying not to scratch, dent or make any marks in anything. So already when I refitted the door, when I refitted this striker plate here, when I tightened it up, the screw was slightly rounded. I tightened it up and went straight up inside there with a scratch, but it was a pretty fine scratch, and it's inside the door aperture. So actually I just put a bit of touch up on it and it looks absolutely fine. Not worried about that at all. But I started cleaning up things like the bumper. So I try not to spend money unnecessarily. So I've got the original bumpers off the car. These are stainless steel bumpers, which is good, but they are not like the later MPI with the rounded edges to stop you cutting your finger. So they're a little bit sharp. I've seen a lot worse. But stainless bumpers are fine. They're not quite as shiny as chrome, but stainless is a very stiff metal. So the studs are obviously all broken, were no good, so I welded new studs on there. Thought I've done a great job. And then I went to fit it. First problem I had, I tried to fit it on the back, didn't line up at all, so that bumper must have come from the front. So I thought, well, the original bumpers, they must fit the car, but of course it's a different front end now. It's not the original front end that was on the car. I nearly cried. I put the bumper on, that sharp edge, scraped off a big bit of paint along here. I have just, I don't know how well you'll be able to see, I've just touched it up. I mean, these things happen, but yeah, I was doing it last night, and I just, at that point, I thought, right, damn tools, go indoors, do something different, because I'm just going to get upset and frustrated. So I've left it overnight, feel a bit better tonight. I'm probably just going to order some new quality bumpers from Mini Spares, but they're not cheap nowadays. Bumpers used to be cheap. They're not nowadays. And like I say, I'm thinking to myself, well, it come off the car, it must go back on fine, but it won't, because it's not the original front end on it, and this being a heritage front end, those being aftermarket bumpers, no wonder it doesn't fit. So I don't know, I do actually have I've got a bumper up there which is a proper, that's a proper MPI one. It's probably got broken studs in it. I can't remember how good a condition. Oh, it's got a dent in it, that's why I never fitted it back on. So that would have come off Project Sprout originally, so I'm not going to use that. I just nicked the bumpers off P-out. No, I'm not going to do that either. Have fitted the number plate on now. I've fitted it in the correct position. Got a spirit level out, but I have noticed there are two little dimples in the boot skin. I think they're actually, I mean, they're right down here. I think it feels like there's like spot welds there, which would be the frame. Yeah, the frame is spot welded. So I don't think it's a dent as such. That's the other problem I've got. Difficult to shut the boot. But those dimples, they just show up. I was thinking about moving the number plate down, but to get the number plate to cover those dimples, I'll have to come down an inch. That'll be too low, it won't look right. But I did look on some photos online, and yeah, I see those dimples on other boot lids, so maybe that's normal. I've not noticed it before, but then if you look on PL has a big number plate on the back, and someone mentioned in the comments the other day, they were kind of period. A lot of minis, sports pack minis of this era, and I'll try and find some press photos if I can find them, but they had the big number plates like that, which is why I got these with the John Cooper, because that's what it came with originally. So I wonder whether they fitted these number plates actually to hide those dimples. Who knows? Let me know if you've got dimples in your boot as well. Anyway, it's Friday evening, finished work for the week. Let's see what we can get done today. I'll tell you what I've been doing actually is filling up a mini spares basket, and it's getting quite expensive. And this is the biggest unboxing I've ever done on the channel.